Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I will talk about the HOA that wants me to vacate my property. The day the Homeowners Association sent their director to evict me from my own house, I was standing on a ladder, replacing a warped board under the eave while listening to a podcast about ordinary people making improbable mistakes. Irony doesn't usually knock. It marches up your driveway in a blazer with a clipboard. I saw him coming around the hedges like he owned the sunlight. Medium height, shiny loafers, hair so neatly parted it looked drawn on. He didn't use the sidewalk. He cut across my lawn in a straight diagonal, heel marks on dew. If my granddad were alive, he'd have called that an omen. He stopped beneath my ladder, shielded his eyes, and announced, "I'm Camden, the director for your Homeowners Association. I'm here to inform you that you've been evicted. You'll need to vacate immediately." I actually laughed and dropped the socket wrench into the grass. The word evicted bounced around up there with the attic insulation. Ridiculous and itchy. "You did what now?" I said. The ladder wobbled. He didn't step back. "You heard me. Evicted," he said. "You're not in compliance. You either join the association or you move out. Those are the rules." "Neat sentence," I said, climbing down. "It just doesn't attach to reality." He held up the clipboard like it was a badge. "I know what actual badges look like. My sister used to do municipal code enforcement in a neighboring county. She warned me when I bought this place that people with clipboards sometimes talk like they can arrest you with grammar. Camden's had pre-printed letterhead. It was one of those templates you can order online with an embossed logo and a Latin motto. The motto was misspelled. I own a little single story with a dented but honest driveway, mature trees that drop leaves like confetti in the fall, and a deed recorded in the county office under my name only. No lien, no mortgage, paid off with years of scraping and an inheritance Granddad left that came with a note folded around the check. This is so you never have to ask anyone for permission to come home. I framed the note in my hallway. "I don't belong to your association," I said. "Never have. Deed restrictions don't say I need to. There's no covenant that runs with my land. Your HOA is across the creek. That's not a metaphor." He glanced toward the creek that cut behind the last row of houses on Willow Bend before the street curved into mine. Our subdivision was one thing when the lots got carved up in the 70s, and then someone tried a master plan on the far side in the 80s, and then the creek changed course in a big storm and split us like the hairline crack in a windshield. Their HOA was born over there with uniform mailboxes and identical hedges trimmed into cubes. Our side stayed the kind of place where a bluebird house and a lawn chair could coexist with a barbecue smoker the size of a small submarine. Property lines mattered because we respected them, not because anyone threatened us with fines. Camden cleared his throat. "We've expanded our jurisdiction," he said, like the creek had politely asked his permission to exist. "You can't live outside the HOA and still benefit from community amenities." "Like what?" I said. "The sunlight?" "The road," he said. "The storm drains, the safety patrol, trash collection." "County road, county drains, county sheriff, city sanitation," I said, ticking them off on my fingers. "We pay taxes for those. Your association has nothing to do with any of it." He curled his lip. "Sir, don't be argumentative." "Neighborly suggestion," I said. "Step off the grass. I only argumentatively mow where people respect private property." He smirked, took one dramatic step backward onto the sidewalk, and then said loud enough for the sparrows to hear, "We can do this the easy way or the right way. You have 10 minutes to leave." I looked at my house, the window I'd reglazed last summer, the porch swing I'd sanded and oiled until it shone, the front door with the little beveled glass oval, and something old and stubborn in me like a fence post set deep into clay refused to budge. "I'm not moving 1 inch," I said. "Not from my property and not from my rights." He tapped his phone screen. "Then I have to escalate." He dialed 911. Now, to be clear for anyone who thinks calling 911 is like pressing a win argument button, it isn't. And in our county, the dispatchers and deputies are busy enough with actual emergencies that when someone calls to try to outsource their ego, it tends to backfire. I know that because I'm friendly with the deputy who walks his old Labrador past my house on Sundays, and because my sister, back in her code days, had to show up to a lot of domestic disputes that started with somebody calling the police like they were ordering a pizza with a side of authority. Camden spoke into the phone in a voice thick with performance. "Yes, hello. I need officers at..." and he rattled off my address. "To remove a trespasser who refuses to vacate." "Yes, that's right. Violent, he's confrontational, he's making threats. He looked at me as he said it like he wanted me to flinch. "Put that on speaker," I said, and reached for my own phone to start a recording. I called out loud and careful. "Dispatch, this is the homeowner, the person at this address. I am on my property. I am not violent. I am being told by a private HOA director that I have been evicted without court process. There is no landlord-tenant relationship. I own this home in fee simple. I am exercising my rights peacefully." Camden fumbled the phone to speaker without meaning to. The dispatcher's voice had that calm, steel-threaded tone people get when they've heard so many stories they can measure absurdity by the pitch of a caller's breath. "Sir," she said to Camden, "is there an immediate threat, weapons, injuries?" "No," he said, "but he's refusing to leave." "Is he your tenant?" "He's refusing to leave," he repeated, louder, like the answer could become true if it echolocated itself. "Sir," she said, "we can send a unit to ensure the peace, but removal from a residence without a court order is not something law enforcement does. Do not attempt to force entry or make threats." "What's your name?" "Camden," he said tightly. "Camden, stay on the sidewalk," she said. "And you, sir, the homeowner, stay where you are. Officers will be by." She clicked off. Camden glared at me like I'd hacked his script. "You'll be leaving today anyway," he said. "You've been noticed." "Noticed?" I said. "Now that's almost a legal word." He started to say something else, but the ladder squeaked when the breeze nudged it. I put it back against the eave. "I'm going to finish replacing this board," I said. "And then I'll wait for the officers. You can wait on the sidewalk." I climbed back up. He made a show of taking photos of my porch light and my mailbox and my lawn gnome like they were contraband. By the time the deputies rolled up, the morning had warmed enough that the cicadas were starting to sing. 2 cruisers, one older deputy I knew by face, if not name, and a younger one with the kind of buzz cut you get when you haven't yet figured out how to tell the barber you want less eager. They stepped out in that cautious way that says they're ready for anything but banking on boredom. I climbed down, wiped sawdust off my palms, and said hello. Camden said, "Officers, thank goodness, remove this man." The older deputy angled his head. "This man is the man who called us the homeowner," he said. "Which one are you?" "I own this house," I said, and braced for the next part. I pulled my phone out and showed them the deed scan I kept in my notes, with the recording information and the parcel number. Originals in the safe. Taxes paid up, no mortgage, no lease, no HOA agreement. You're welcome to verify with dispatch. The younger deputy took the phone, read the header, and nodded once. That nod was like a damper closing on the hot air Camden had been pumping. "So you're calling to evict the owner," he said to Camden lightly, like he wanted to give him a chance to hear how that sounded. Camden puffed himself up, which was impressive since he wasn't very deflated to begin with. He gestured to the horizon where his association presumably floated like a stern cloud. "Have expanded our area. We noticed him. He's in violation. He must join or move out. He's refusing to comply. That's trespassing." The older deputy did something I wish everyone would do more often in disagreements. He took a breath, looked at the creek, at my porch, at the curb. They always look at the curb. It's a way to ground yourself, and then asked for the paper. Camden handed him the clipboard like a talisman. The deputy read. He didn't grin, but his face softened like he was trying not to. "Okay," he said. "A homeowners association is a private entity. It has authority only over properties subject to its recorded covenants. Do you have a recorded covenant attached to this parcel?" he asked. Camden blinked. "We have a resolution." "That's not a covenant," the deputy said. "Eviction is a landlord-tenant remedy, and only a court can order it. The sheriff executes writs of possession. We can't evict a homeowner based on a private association's say-so. If you think he's violating some covenant, that's a civil matter. Do not call 911 for this again." Camden swiveled to me like a sprinkler of indignation. "I will file for a court order." "You do that," I said. "Just make sure you tell the judge how you decided your club rules apply to a house on a different subdivision with no common deed restrictions and a creek between them, and how you came to my property to declare me evicted, and how you used 911 for leverage." I kept my voice even because the part of me that wanted to dunk on him is the part that knows dunking feels good for 7 seconds and terrible later. I learned that in my 20s in ways we don't have to revisit. The older deputy turned to me with a small apologetic expression. "We'll make a note," he said. "Do you want to trespass him?" That was a magic question. In our state, you can ask an officer to formally warn someone to stay off your property. If they come back after that, it turns criminal. I do, I said, looking at Camden. From my property line to my porch and everything in between. He doesn't have my consent to step 1 foot onto my lawn. The deputy's pen came out. Name again? He asked Camden. Camden, he said, now less shiny. And your last name? Camden gave it. The deputy wrote it down, wrote my address, wrote criminal trespass warning issued, and read it aloud. You're being warned to stay off this property. If you return, we can cite or arrest you. Camden looked like he'd never been told no by anyone who could put it on paper. He gathered his clipboard to his chest like a shield. This isn't over, he said. It never is, I said, because in my experience, the kind of person who says this isn't over doesn't usually know when it started. He left. The deputies lingered a moment. The younger one asked if my porch swing was cedar. I told him it was. The older one advised me to keep my exterior cameras facing the walkway and the driveway and to save any interactions. He didn't need to tell me that. I keep a small camera under the eave and a doorbell cam that syncs to my phone. My sister started me on that too, after a situation with a neighbor and a surveyor stake that went sideways one fall when leaves made the property line look like a suggestion. I went inside and made coffee that tasted like victory, but with a burnt aftertaste of dread. Because if you've ever navigated a conflict with someone like Camden, you know they rarely figure out they're wrong and apologize in pie. They escalate laterally if not upward. They find new ways to be wrong. On principle, I don't ignore that. On strategy, I write everything down. I started a folder, digital and paper, called Creekside HOA Adventure, which felt petty and accurate. I took screenshots of the 911 summary I could access, saved the audio I'd recorded, and emailed myself a copy of my deed again with the subject line, Reminder, you own your house. Breathe. My phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor Kira, who lives 2 houses down with her kid and a beagle who thinks he's a judge. What was with the man in shoes too shiny for this street? She wrote. HOA director from across the creek decided to evict me, I wrote. She responded with a string of incredulous emojis and then, you want peach cobbler? I'm making one like therapy. That's when I remembered something valuable. When someone tries to yank your life sideways, you need to make sure your life has weight. Friends, neighbors, routines. I told Kira I'd take her up on it later, and I got to work. There are a few threads to pull when a private association overreaches. One is the legal thread. What covenants are recorded, what maps say, what the property appraiser's database lists, what the county planning department knows. Another is the human thread, who this director answers to, who's on the board, who's been the target of their energy before, who rolled their eyes and kept receipts. I started with the legal thread. The county recorder's website is better than it used to be. You can search by parcel number and pull up any recorded documents. I knew mine well. Deed, a harmless utility easement. A recorded satisfaction of a tiny old lien for a fence permit that had been paid before I bought. No associations, no covenants. On the map layer, the creek showed like a lazy loop of blue, with the HOA's subdivision name on the far side and our street simply ours, different plat, different filing year, different lot dimensions. I took screenshots with timestamps. Then the property appraiser's site, they list something called a DOR code in our state, basically a property use classification. Mine said single-family residential, non-HOA. I printed that to PDF. I also checked the plat for the far side and found the recorded covenants that created the association and the boundaries. They were explicit. The HOA applied to lots 1 through 92 of a named subdivision, recorded in book such and such, page so and so, not my lot number, not my book and page, not my life. There was also a map the county had for special districts, those little invisible lines that say who handles what. The HOA didn't show up because they're private. The stormwater district did, though, and it was county. I grinned at Camden's use of the drains as leverage. Some people say things because they sound like an anchor. They're helium balloons tied to an empty chair. The human thread was messier. I'm not a joiner by nature, but I'm a listener, and the kind of person who remembers who has a good memory. So I walked down to the cul-de-sac where a retired contractor named Ezra keeps a fold-up chair under his carport like an office. He's one of those guys who's kind of the unofficial mayor of the street without having to do anything more formal than wave. He saw me coming and raised a hand. I saw your celebrity visitor, he said. He came by earlier this week when you were out, left one of those, he wiggled his fingers, flyers. He call you evicted? He called me non-compliant, Ezra said, savoring the phrase. like I'm a radio that won't pick up show tunes. I told him I've been here before his haircut existed and that he could tell his association they didn't annex my hammock. He did not laugh. "Who's he answer to?" I asked. "Board with a chair named Locken," he said. "Yes, that's a name. Her husband is the sort who wears golf clothes even at dinner. She hosts meetings at their clubhouse. You can't blink inside for fear they'll fine you. They're trying to get control of this side because they're mad our houses don't all face the same direction." "You get a copy of what he left?" I asked. Ezra unfolded from his chair like a crane and shuffled inside. He came back with a glossy trifold that smelled like toner and self-importance. It claimed, without a clue, that the Creekside Master Association had extended its footprint to serve and protect the adjacent legacy lots, which is a nice way of saying people who don't know we exist. There were bullet points about amenities like a pool, which is across the creek behind a keyed gate, a fitness room, and community standards. Asterisk. Membership mandatory for all nearby residents. Triple asterisk. Non-compliance may result in removal. I photographed it. "They call it the Creekside Master Association," I said, "but their recorded docs just say Creekside Homeowners Association." "There's been talk," Ezra said, "that they hired a management company. New guy with nothing better to do than scan Google Maps and send letters." My mind built a picture. A corporate management outfit that takes 10% of fines and gets paid more when there are more pages to print. That would explain Camden's shiny shoes and the brand new way of being wrong with confidence. As a warm-up, I did a small thing that makes a big difference later. I dropped a written request at the county sheriff's administrative office asking for the CAD notes and audio from the call. In our state, 911 recordings are public records you can request. I filled out the form with the incident time and address. The clerk said it would take a few days. Fine. Patience is a tool if you keep it oiled. Back home, I set my coffee mug down and the Beagle judge barked once at a squirrel who insulted his honor by existing. I put the trifold and my screenshots in the folder and wrote a 2-sentence note to myself. The creek is a boundary in nature and paper. They pretend not to see it, but the law does. Then I got a text from an unknown number that didn't start with "Hi dear" or "Your package is delayed," which meant it might be relevant. "This is Aria from across the creek," it said. "Did Camden show up? He's been on a tear. He fined my granddad for hanging a flag at the wrong angle last month." She followed with a photo of a wrinkled elderly man making a face at a camera with a flag in the background that was patriotic and, more importantly, correctly flown. "It's actually within the rules," she wrote. "They're inventing infractions to make a point. Do you need info? I'll help." I called her. She spoke fast, like someone who'd been rehearsing what she'd tell someone who'd finally listen. "Camden's new. Lakin is the chair. The management company is called Neighborhood Nexus," she said quickly. "They took over from a volunteer board. Now it's fee here, fine there. People used to put up seasonal wreaths. They fined Mrs. Bowman because hers had a small bell on it and the guidelines say quiet decorative accents. They're calling the old folks at all hours, threatening liens." "Liens?" I said, because that's a word that can be real or pretend depending on what paper backs it up. "They sent my granddad a notice of intent last week for $200 because he parked the old truck in the wrong direction," she said. "They said they'd lien his property. We called the original covenants. They say the board can issue fines for common area violations but has to follow a hearing process and can't lien for fines not ratified in court. Camden told us hearings are now administrative and presumed valid. He recorded a lien anyway. My granddad cried at the clerk's counter when the sweet lady there told him it wasn't actually valid because the bylaws don't authorize it. He's never cried in public in 81 years. I pulled up the recorded documents and sure enough, there was a thing that looked like a lien but was labeled a notice of encumbrance, filed by the HOA's management company on behalf of the association with language that would have fooled anyone not looking at the bylaws. It wasn't legally enforceable on its face, but it would cloud the title just enough to cause trouble if someone didn't know to push back. My jaw set like concrete in winter. It was one thing to try to puff up at me, it was another to bully an old man. "I'll help," I told Aria. "First, send me as much as you've got. Letters, dates, screenshots. Don't post them anywhere yet. Let me do some quiet homework. If they've recorded anything that slanders title, we can talk to a lawyer. In our state, that's a real tort. Also, please document any calls, times, what got said." "You think you can stop them?" she asked, her voice wobbling between hope and years of skepticism. "I think the creek is a line in more ways than one," I said. "And I think people who act like this usually step on rakes they thought were flowers." The next morning, I woke to find a bright orange paper taped to my front door like a Halloween prank. Final notice of eviction. The typography screamed like a discount furniture sale. It gave me 24 hours to vacate pending enforcement. My doorbell camera had caught a hand with a signet ring and part of a blazer sleeve. The timestamp was 5:12 a.m. There's a limit to my patience. I don't abide by threats on paper taped to a door I sanded myself. I measured the paper for fun, took the tape off carefully so I wouldn't pull paint, put the notice in a plastic sleeve, and called a lawyer. I don't love calling lawyers on a whim because billable hours can whittle your resolve. But I have one I use sparingly, a property attorney named Miles who speaks in clean sentences and charges fair rates because he believes finishing a conversation shouldn't feel like getting off a carnival ride. I gave him the rundown. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "They have no authority over your parcel. None. Their documents bind their lots. They cannot unilaterally expand. The county won't recognize it. The court won't. As for a supposed eviction, in this state you can't evict a homeowner from their own home without a foreclosure judgment or ejectment action with due process, neither of which they can win without a deed covenant or lease. If they serve any legal paperwork, send it to me. If they trespass, call the police again. If they file anything at the recorder against your title, call me immediately. We can go for slander of title and seek damages. And file a complaint with the state's agency that regulates community associations. They have to follow process." "What about the old folks they're leaning on?" I asked. "They recorded something against a guy's property that isn't authorized by their documents. That's slander of title if they knew or should have known they had no authority," he said. "It's also an unfair or deceptive practice under our consumer protection law if the management company is acting in trade. We can put them on notice. We can also send a letter to their board advising them of their personal exposure if they act outside their authority." "Personal?" I said, enjoying the sound of it. "In some circumstances, yes," he said. "Boards often think they have immunity. It's not absolute when they step outside duties or act with malice. And management companies have no immunity. They're businesses. We made a plan. He'd draft a demand letter to the association and the management company advising them to cease any threats and to rescind any papers referencing my property. He'd also offer them a chance to correct the public record where they had recorded anything improper. Meanwhile, I'd file complaints with the state and the county's Consumer Protection Office, and I'd start talking to my neighbors on this side of the creek, because problems like this get solved faster when people can hold hands across front yards and share names of officials to call." That same afternoon, during lunch, the punishment part of the story started to grow roots. It began with a conversation under the pecan tree where the shade falls in a ragged circle like a quilt. A man I'd waved to 100 times but never really talked to, his name is Noble because his grandparents believed in aspirational naming, walked over with an envelope in his hand. "You get one of these?" he asked. I did. I held up my orange notice like a badge of courage you hadn't asked for. Noble said, "They threatened to fine me for my radio antenna." He pointed at a thin wire, nearly invisible, but for the way it made a faint line against the sky. "I'm a ham, licensed for decades. It's allowed by federal rules. I sent them the FCC memo. Camden told me federal rules are suggestions." My wife laughed so hard she cried. "I think the universe sometimes hands you people at the exact moment your courage could use reinforcement." We set up a folding table near my mailbox with a pitcher of lemonade and a sign I made with my leftover scrap vinyl that said, "Know your property rights." Kira brought the cobbler. Ezra brought a map he'd drafted himself to scale when he rebuilt his fence last spring. And Noble brought a binder labeled FCC, with tabs and a small pride in his precise handwriting. Over the next 2 hours, neighbors drifted up. Some had seen Camden. Some had only heard whispers. Some assumed the HOA had jurisdiction here because the flyers looked official, and official-looking things can intimidate. I laid it out. The recorded covenants bounded the HOA's authority. Our parcels were not within. The creek and the plat map were not metaphors. We weren't subject to their rules unless we voluntarily opted in via a recorded agreement, which none of us had. Someone asked, "Can they call the police again and get us kicked out?" "No," I said, and I told them about the deputies and the trespass warning. They used 911 to try to scare me. It didn't work. It also left a record that shows how they operate. We're requesting that audio. It'll matter if we need it. Arya came by across the footbridge, which is technically on city land, and has a little sign that says no bikes, a sign people ride their bikes past like an inside joke. She brought a folder. In it were copies of letters, notices, minutes from a board meeting where Locken had referred to our standards mission, and an email where Camden suggested testing the edges of the plat map since most people won't bother to fight. That line made the hair on my forearms lift. That's the sentence you hang in a museum of hubris. May I asked. Can I copy this? She nodded. I already did, and I highlighted that part. We made another plan. We would not sit quietly, but also we would not rant. We'd be precise. That's how ordinary people win against loud nonsense. Paper and process. A calm voice that says, no, that's not how any of this works. That evening, after the sun dipped and the temperature stopped pretending it had anything to prove, I wrote my first complaint. It wasn't angry. It read like a timeline. I included the date Camden stepped onto my lawn, the words he used, the 911 call, the orange notice, the lack of any recorded covenant, the map showing the boundary, and the management company's role in authoring false notices. I cited our state's Community Association statute section that says associations may levy assessments and regulate common property within their boundaries and only their boundaries. I referenced the section of the Unfair Practices Law that prohibits threats without legal authority. I included that sentence from Camden's email about testing edges and most people not fighting, redacted for any private information. I CC'd the County Consumer Office, the State Association Regulator, and the Attorney General's public inquiry email, because my sister taught me that sometimes you copy the person who doesn't have the power to fix it, but very much has the power to want to. I slept like someone who'd finally set a heavy thing down. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a diesel engine idling by my curb. I peered through the blinds and saw a tow truck. For a fraction of a second, I thought, they're impounding my house. That's how absurdity reprograms your sense of scale. Then I saw the truck's driver get out and look confusedly at Camden. Yes, Camden, who was standing there with another clipboard and pointing at Noble's driveway where the old ham radio guy's pickup sat with a bed full of lumber and a bumper sticker that said, "Quiet please, I'm listening for Mars." The tow driver shrugged, clearly uncomfortable. He mouthed, "Are you sure?" Camden nodded emphatically. The driver approached the truck with a dolly. Noble walked out on his porch in a bathrobe, holding a coffee mug with a faded picture of a lighthouse. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Got a call for a violation tow," the driver said, already sounding like he wished he had a different job. "From who?" Noble asked, because sometimes the best question is the simplest one. "Association," the driver said, tipping his chin toward Camden. "This is not an association property," Noble said calmly. "And even if it were, they can't tow from a private residential driveway without authority. You set foot on my property with that dolly, and I'll have to ask you to leave, respectfully." The driver hesitated. Camden said, "Move that vehicle." I walked out with my phone in my hand, recording. "Driver," I said, "I'm the guy who's learning a lot about property rights this week. If you touch that truck, you're trespassing. No lawful authority here. This is not a common area. You may be acting on instructions that aren't valid. If you want to wait for a deputy to clarify, that would be the wise move." He looked from me to Noble to Camden. Camden puffed. "He has no right to park facing the street." "Facing the street?" Noble said. "Is this an aesthetic issue?" "It's a safety rule," Camden said. "On a private driveway," I said, "operating under a statute that doesn't exist. Please don't be part of this." The tow driver, to his credit, put his hands up and said, "I'm not starting a civil war. I'm calling my dispatcher." He stepped away to do that. Camden started to reach for his phone in that "I'm going to make you matter" tone. I texted the older deputy's phone number, the one he handed out for neighborhood watch issues and non-emergencies, and explained the situation quickly. He said he'd send a car by. When the deputies arrived, the same pair as before by the luck of the shift schedule, the older one didn't even have to walk all the way up the driveway to see what was happening. "Nope," he said to the tow driver. "You're not hooking to anything on this property. If the association has a problem with how someone parks in a private driveway outside their jurisdiction, they can complain into the wind. That's a civil matter. If you hook that truck, you're committing trespass and conversion. Go on." The tow driver tipped his cap to us and towed his empty dolly back to his cab. He told Camden quietly, "Don't put me in that spot again." He left. Camden stared at the deputies with that brittle fury of a person who can't understand why power doesn't obey. The older deputy said, "I'm going to suggest you stop calling folks to handle your business. And if you have a problem with that suggestion, you can take it up with the sheriff's office administration." He said it in that way that sounds polite, but feels like a wall. A wall is what Camden ran into, and walls don't move, but they do redirect. He pivoted to a new tactic: mail. Over the next 3 days, I received 3 letters, each more dramatic than the last. The first was a notice of membership requirement, asserting that the master had voted to include our side by necessity. The second was a failure to vacate final warning, which used words like trespasser in a sentence so grammatically unstable I wanted to diagram it like a museum piece. The third was a notice of complaint filed with the state regulator, they said, about me for harassment of association officers. I found that last one funny in a gallows humor way because the regulator sent me a copy of my own complaint with a note thanking me for my thorough documentation and asking for any updates. Their letter included a paragraph that read, "The association has no jurisdiction over properties outside its recorded boundaries. We have opened an inquiry." Miles fired off demand letters, calm and surgical. Any attempt to dispossess me would be met with injunctions, damages, and fees. That rattled someone. Locken blasted the forum about the soul of our neighborhood, hinting at drastic action. Residents pushed back. Was that legal? Isn't the creek the boundary? A few warned it sounded like a lawsuit begging to happen. Meanwhile, Kira's situation became the second rope around the pulley. Her 7-year-old Rowan relies on August, a trained service dog. Twice, Camden tried to block them on the path near the pool, insisting on permission. Kira showed him the law. He called her combative. Miles said if it happened again, we'd add harassment and service animal violations to the pile. Then the public records request landed. The 911 audio captured dispatch telling Camden he couldn't evict a homeowner and to stay on the sidewalk. Notes showed he'd claimed I was violent and there was a hostile crowd, which body cams disproved. The sheriff's office warned him about false statements. I sent everything to the regulator and copied the board and management. Our street posted a script on fridges. "We're not in the HOA, direct contact to Miles." Camden doubled down with a fake board resolution, curfews, repossessing amenities, and a security contractor called Sentinel. Aria's recording caught neighbors pushing back and Camden snapping, "We'll handle the legal stuff." He came to my curb with a guard and Carly, the bookkeeper. I refused his reduced fee deal. The guard noted they had no authority here. Carly later shared the management contract. Pay rose with enforcement volume and applied only to creekside lots. The regulator opened an investigation. A reporter wrote about the fake eviction and Kira's service dog. In court, the judge asked Camden what recorded authority he had. He held up a paper he'd written. The judge, "You cannot expand your authority by wishing. We won a declaratory judgment and an injunction protecting similarly situated properties." The judge also nodded toward the service animal law. Consequences stacked: reprimand and training for the board, fines for bogus recordings, management fired, Laken out, Camden relieved, a city citation for blocking the path. Social gravity did the rest. Even the coffee cart stopped indulging his theatrics. Aria's granddad received a check and a recorded release. August kept walking the footbridge like a victory parade. What stuck wasn't just penalties, it was a reset of boundaries and habits. The lesson fit on a fridge: own paper, record calls, meet neighbors, call your lawyer, call deputies, and don't let anyone annex your peace with a sentence. They tried to evict me from my home. They learned the difference between authority and ambition. When the cicadas rattle, it sounds like applause. Friends, thank you. See you soon.